By now, we've probably all seen the quote from Trey Wallace stating that Faizon Brandon has the edge over George McIntyre heading into fall practice, even going as far as stating that from what he heard, it would be a long shot if George McIntyre actually won the job. So let's talk about it. You know, off the rip, I assumed going into spring training, spring practice, that George McIntyre would more than likely be in the lead just because he's had more time in Josh Heupel's offense. Not even taking into account, you know, the very, very few times that he showed up in the game. Just the fact he's in practice feels like he should have the advantage. But the way Faizon Brandon showed up to spring practice, I mean, the kid has put in work while he's been waiting on this. I mean, you see, he is a big guy. He's a big quarterback. And adding the fact that he's had the playbook since he's, you know, signed and committed, or at least since he signed. So he's not that far behind. But if this is true, I'm not going to be shocked. I think the bigger question is, if Faizon Brandon wins the competition, is George McIntyre going to transfer? I think the ultimate answer is yes, because, you know, Faizon's a true freshman. If you can't beat out the true freshman, the likelihood of you getting a lot of playing time is slim. So if Faizon wins, George is out. On the flip side, if George wins, I don't necessarily see Faizon being out immediately. Maybe eventually he decides to move on. But, you know, either way, all that doesn't ultimately matter if Faizon is truly in the lead. And I actually prefer it to be Faizon, if I'm honest. He, nothing against George, because I think George looks way more poised than a lot of our backups have looked in the past. But I just think that Faizon has the higher upside. And the funny thing is a lot of people will think about the fact that, you know, he may or may not be athletic, which may or may not be a lie, because he's been recruited as a pocket passer. A lot of people, I don't think, realize that. The kid's got a cannon, and I think he's just got that leadership mentality that feels like it would fit a Josh Heupel offense. Now, we've seen that George has been, you know, I think he went to Florida with a bunch of the wide receivers. That right there shows that his intent from the beginning is that he's going to be the starter, regardless of what anybody else says. So I think this competition is going to be heated through fall. I don't think we're really going to know who's going to get behind center until that very first game. So, you know, it's a great topic for debate. Ultimately, I don't think anyone's going to really know, because Heupel can switch it up at any moment. In my opinion, like I said, I'm kind of pulling for Faizon just because I think that he fits better within that Heupel system. But, hey, only time will tell. I'm going to be rooting for whoever wins, and